Welcome to the Fight Game. He's Icewater and I'm Puma. And the first question I have is what happened to Tzu? What happened?
Man, reality set in, bro. I'm trying to tell you about that, man. I thought just from my observation is the way his style of fighting is coming straight forward, hell of a puncher, but he's kind of more mechanical. And with that being said, two styles now I think kind of show us that can cause him problems. One is the more versatile, the more athletic boxer type that has power, causes problems. And then now we're finding out that a guy like uh, Mortazali is a problem because he's bigger, a puncher. And what he showed us is Mortazali in that fight is that if I'm bigger than he's bigger than the opponent, and when he rocked him, there was no comeback for Tszyu. Tszyu's a hell of a fighter too. So to see him get punished like that was something else. But it shows you that this gentleman came in 23 and 0, 17 knockouts, and just seemed like a bigger, stronger guy. And his punching power was too much. And as much as the fighter in Tszyu from his background, family, proud, it was just too much. And you could see it. No matter how much he tried, it was like, I'm ready. And referee's like, you got one more time. This guy was just a monster.
Yeah, and kudos to him for taking out one of the top fighters in that division. But where does Tszyu go now? Because we talked about it off air about how his father came to see the fight, and him and his father have a kind of a strange relationship, and that he wants to move to Las Vegas, which might be helpful to him, Tszyu. I'm speaking of to become a better fighter, a more versatile fighter, so he can handle some of the different styles of fighters. What's next for him, man?
I mean, I think that's a real question and a real serious question that he has asked himself after such being pummeled by in such a manner. Do you still have it? Can you adjust the fight certain ways? And we had to get off the fact that we're on the coattails of how great your father's legacy was. This is not about your dad. This is about you. And we saw, even though the fight with the cut in Fedor was horrible, and you fought like a champion, you gave your all. You come back now against a guy that's a little bit stronger and kind of more direct, and he just put you down. So is it your style? Do you have a heart or wherewithal to kind of change and switch up and adjust to these new challenges? Because let's look at it. More athleticism. 154 is loaded. Let's say you were the one, you have won that fight, you're fighting Crawford. We're gonna take it a step down. Let's say you fought Jamel Charlo at 150, or Jamel Charlo at 154. As much as there's been some controversy with him, do you have the ability to adjust? Or even with a Lubin, can you take that punch? So the question that he really has to ask, one, are you still moving to Las Vegas? Because he's a fighter. I don't think he's going to quit. I think he's going to give it a still go. But there has to be some changes because I want to know after such a devastating loss, what is he thinking?
Yeah, because within 3 rounds, I mean, you fought some of the toughest fighters in some of the toughest fights, and then to go down to 3 rounds, I mean, just dismantled in 3 rounds. Is something's going on. So it's a lot of questions that he has to ask. Now there's a fight coming up with Catterall and Prograis. Prograis fought in a fight where he got dominated, I think, by Devin Haney, and it didn't look good, and said, "Hey, man, this guy's good." What are you looking for going against Catterall in this particular fight? Because Catterall is no joke, and it seems like he is in the later stages of his career, and he's trying to make as much money and carve out a legacy before he goes out.
Yeah, I think what I need to see, because you got to realize Carterall, 29-1, the guy that took down Josh Taylor, right? And I need to see what Regis Prograis is going to show up. We know how good he was early on. You fought Devin Haney. You know, maybe it was a bit too much. You wasn't ready for him. Maybe too much on a higher level. But if Prograis had said, I am coming back, I may not be the A side or the top guy, but I'm still legitimate contender, then you have to show this against Catterall. You just do. So sometimes the level of style make fights. You know, he didn't really look good against Devin Haney, y'all, because he couldn't move. Haney was too elusive. I think this is a fight that's made for him. If he's the guy that he says who we think he is. So it's a great opportunity to redeem himself. But if he doesn't, you got to ask yourself again, like we said before about another fighter, where do you belong in this madness? Where you belong? I mean, it's right here. You got to beat somebody, and I think this is a great redemption opportunity because even if you're not a top tier fighter, there's a lot of room for a lot of money to be made on the B level, second level, good fights, money, even titles. But if you can't on this level, which is not, I don't think top tier level, as much as I like Cotterall, if you can't beat a guy like this on this level, you got to start asking yourself, where do I belong?
Yeah, and this should be a good fight. I'm kind of giving the edge to Catterall in this particular fight, um, and because I think he's a more solid fighter, and I don't know if Prograis has, he talks a lot, but I don't see him backing it up. He didn't back it up during Devin Haney. He talked a lot in that fight, so I'm getting away from the promotion and the press conferences and folks talking. I just want to see you fight. I don't, you can get the best of a guy talking, but somewhere along the line you got to get in the ring. Now we did discuss pound for pound and how that has changed, and you had a list of who was on the pound for pound, but the monster is not getting any love in that pound for pound kind of consideration, and let's talk about that, man.
Yeah, well, I think the monster is getting the love. The person that's not getting the love is Nakatani. You know, Nakatani is the champion at 118. He's 29 and 0, 28 and 0, I'm sorry, with like 19 knockouts. But in almost every uh, pound for pound I've seen, somewhere around there is Jesse Ben Rodriguez, who's 20 and 0. And he's made the jump up to 115. And he's won. He's the guy. But he's everywhere you look, it's almost as if you get this guy is in front of you. But how does he get all of the love or the majority of the love? And there's not a lot of mention with Nakatani. Nakatani is one of the top Japanese champions, and you mentioned earlier about why you think he's not getting the love. But he was going through all of the moves. I'm talking about Nakatani. He's at 118, and he's supposed to fight the monster's younger brother, Takua, in a way. And the younger brother lost and now dropped to fifth in the division. And now Nakatani is looking at the monster at 122, which might take place next year in one of the biggest fights we've seen in a long time, particularly on Japanese soil between two Japanese fighters. But my question is, and my point of all this is, if Bam Rodriguez is receiving love as one of the top 10 fighters at this point at 115, great. But I need to see you prove it even more. Again, let me preface this by saying he's right now at 115. Nakatani's at 118. He's already moved up. Why can't we see Ben Rodriguez versus Nakatani?
Yeah.
Possibly Nakatani could come down or whatever, somewhere in the middle. I want to see Ben Rodriguez against somebody that is a more formidable opponent before we start displaying showing you with greatness, especially in the top 10 right now, pound for pound.
It would be interesting to see the pound for pound list around the world because people around the world, around the globe, seem to get more perspective of different fighters in their country and countries surrounding them than the United States. And the United States sometimes is elitist when it comes to sports and especially fighting. If you're not fighting here, then we don't really pay attention to you. Where you had in the UK, you had great fighters in the UK. You have great fighters in Japan. You have great fighters in different parts of the world. And to me, the pound for pound top 10 is all about how much exposure you can get in the boxing world. And so when you look at the monster Nakataki, those guys aren't getting exposure here. They're not getting exposure here. They're not fighting in Las Vegas. They're not fighting in Madison Square Garden. They probably can't get the deals that they want to get here. So they're fighting where, they're welcome and they're accepted. So I get that. But it's almost like we talked about this earlier about Terrence Crawford, how he only, for a while, only fought in Nebraska and wasn't getting that exposure. And my thing with him, why I didn't really rock with him before, is like, man, when are you gonna fight somebody, and when are you gonna come out of Nebraska and fight where people can actually see you, or would go to those big cities and see you fight, like in Las Vegas and New York, and other venues around the United States. And so I think it's it's slowly but surely to me changing because you have the UFC and the MMA and people from different parts of the world that we get to see and get exposure here in America. But I can see boxing doing the same thing later on. But I think I would like to see the pound for pound list from different sports outlets in the UK, in Japan, to see who they're looking at and calling and saying, these are the top 10 fighters that we consider. Instead of just seeing, we get ours from Yahoo Sports or ESPN or, some sports outlets here. And some of those guys, I don't think they're really experts in fighters. I would like to get the top pound for pound fighters from actual fighters who actually fought, not sports writers, but actual guys that know about these fighters from around the world and say, hey, you need to check out this guy, you need to check out this guy, and who don't, I guess, have a platform where they can actually put it in print to say, these are my top 10 right here.
Sounds like we need to reach out to Buddy McGirt, huh?
Yes, definitely. Definitely need to reach out to Buddy
We
because
need to reach Buddy McGirt because he's going to break it down for us what we need to look into. I'll say this: the one thing that really, and the reason why I'm harping on these lighter weights, 118, and trying to educate folks about those that don't know 118, 115, is the factor. I remember like it was yesterday, the first time I saw Manny Pacquiao at a lighter weight
mm-hmm.
when he fought Wildman Will Marquez. And I'm trying to let folks know now that don't know, get on the train now because I remember I watched Manny Pacquiao versus Wildman Will Marquez, and I was like, man, this is like one of the best fights I've ever seen. The first fight, and I think when Nakatani, if he does fight the monster, that's going to be the same thing. So get your tickets now to see whatever. Don't be caught off guard and not know what's going on because this type of talent, and no disrespect to Ben Rodriguez, but this type of talent is coming on and this at a lower weight, and it's going to be very powerful. It's going to be very engaging. And it's the type of talent we want to see in the ring that we're not getting sometimes at the larger weights.
I think we're so hungry in this country for the heavyweights to be the top dog like it used to be and back when we were kids in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I mean, throughout the 1900s, all the way up to 2000 when Mike Tyson was fighting. We look at the heavyweight. We don't really pay attention to the lighter weight, and it was fighters like Sugar Ray and other fighters, Sugar Ray Robinson, all those fighters in the lighter weights who kind of brought it to the forefront. Where over the years, the bigger fights have been with the smaller fighters. We want to see that. But it always goes back to once a big heavyweight becomes popular, we go right back to running to the big guys and kind of leave the little guys back in the dust because like, oh yeah, that's the undercard. We want the big boys to be out in the main card. And we never got away from that. Like this is a society, I think in America, like big Cadillac cars. We don't like economy. We like the big Cadillac, we like the big, we like everything big. But these other fighters are just showing that they are just superior fighters, even though they weigh much less. They are superior fighters and must see TV. But the American mentality is like we want our fighters to be big, strong, the heavyweights rule, and it's just not that case anymore.
No, I agree with that 100%. And I think too that if you take that viewpoint, then you're gonna miss a lot of great talented fighters. Because like you said before about Pacquiao, so many others, Floyd Mayweather when he rose up through the ranks,
Hmm.
so many others have risen up. Even Terrence Crawford, for that matter,
Yeah,
has risen up to a larger weight class now, and is trying to say, "Oh wow, I saw this guy rise." So I think you should open your eyes be a little bit more objective to some of these lighter weights, because boxing is boxing. Amazing boxing and fighting is amazing no matter what level it is. And the way we're looking at it, nothing to take away from the little man, because I know you're feeling some kind of way about the little man, and that's okay. But if you're not receiving, you don't have the quality of opponents that, or the boxing matches on that highest level, as far as weight is concerned, why not drop down and catch some great bouts that you may be missing at a lighter weight?
yeah. Let's go to Fendora. There have been some news about Fendora. Who is he going to fight next? I've seen Crawford going to fight Fendora. I've seen Spence going to fight Fendora. They're calling them all out, but these fights aren't being set yet. What's your news on Fendora? And you seem to like Fendora. I like Fendora too. I just don't like his undiscipline sometimes. But your thoughts on Fendora? Who's he going to fight next, man?
I'll say this: first of all, I like Fedora's will to fight, and I might get him in trouble because you're a tall guy and you'll fight in a phone booth, and you're better off if you were more of a jabber to
Dapper,
prove
yeah.
it. But I think he can't help himself because he likes to scrap. And that could be a bad thing, but at the same time, you can never talk about his will or even his skill set. He's showing you now I can fight, man, and I think I can get in that phone booth with anybody and still come out. You might not think I can, but I'm a lot. He showed you against in the fight with Tazoo that it was a mess, but he kind of had a different style then too. So he's capable of doing a lot of things. To answer your question, his next fight I think is going to be versus Errol Spence Jr. And the reason for that is I think it might have been the WBO that tried to make Terrence Crawford as Fendora's mandatory, right? But I think the way it came out of it, this was prior before the Tazoo recent fight, that the Sheik, the promoter, that the Sheik was working on a deal that the winner Martez, of Tazoo and Murtazali would fight Crawford. So Crawford was excited about that, thinking about $40 million purse. Not so sure now what the Sheik is thinking now that Murtazali, who's the eighth ranked fighter in that division, is that a big time match against Crawford.
Right.
So is the money still there? But then on the flip side, Crawford still has the ability now to fight the winner of Fendora versus Spence, which I think if he does do that, he's going to get more value for his money. We talked about earlier offline. Is this the point that we need to understand? You mentioned about Crawford fighting out of Nebraska. For instance, Sheik is saying because of the last Crawford bout, he's thinking about just centralizing everything and keeping it in Saudi Arabia because he don't want to lose any more money like that. You have to ask yourself about the draw of Terrence Crawford. Dynamite fighter, talented fighter, but is he a draw?
Right.
So the question is, in order for him to make some real money now, I'm talking about Terrence Crawford, you're going to have to take chances to make money. And we said the winner of Fendora versus Spence, or do you take a chance because Charlo's been inactive? You said you think you could beat him. Do you take that on? You'll make money off of that though. You'll
Yeah.
do nothing else. People want to see that fight. And maybe you think he's been rusty, he's been around too long, or sitting on the shelf. That might be a fight you might be looking at. Because I said again, I don't know how many more fights that Terrence Crawford has left or wants to fight anymore.
Yeah.
That's why I think he's willing to take the shot at 168 versus Canelo. Because now it's all about securing his legacy. His family should have enough cash, but he wants, if I want to fight, put me in position to fight some of the best fighters so I can get, establish even more of my legacy, make more cash, and walk away as one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, and you segued right into the next topic we're going to tackle with Canelo Alvarez. Beterbiev, I thought was going to have a rematch with Bivol, but it sounds like, according to some outlets out there, that Alvarez and Beterbiev will probably be a better fight, a better draw, since Beterbiev beat Bivol, Bivol beat Canelo. It only makes sense for the guy to beat Bivol and the guy to beat um, Alvarez, Bivol, you fight that person and see who's the best out of that to get back to Bivol after that fight, whoever wins that fight.
Yeah, I think Bivol would love to have a rematch. But I also think too, though, if it's going to be more money and he can sit back and watch what's going on, and Canelo fight Beterbiev instead, that okay, I'll sit back and watch and take the winner, so I
Mm-hmm.
can really evaluate what's going on. Because I think the factor that Canelo would be intrigued, even though it depends on what weight, because we talked about that. Would it be closer to 168? Would it be really 175? Canelo's intrigued by the factor that he thinks that Beterbiev is a little bit more slower fighter, and he can probably get inside of him and will take that chance to be able to punch and get on him like that too. Plus, too, if he beats him, even though he lost to Bivol, it puts him on another level. And Canelo's always looking for ways to improve. So it would be interesting. Canelo's like, okay, I'll take a chance. I took one before. Guy's a little bit more athletic, a little bit better boxer. This way, this guy's not gonna run from me, and I think I can hit as hard like anybody else. So it would be very interesting in contrast to styles where it might be the best thing for Canelo to do that. Or does he take another shot against somebody that most people don't want to see him fight?
Most people don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think that's played out in my book. He needs to fight a top tier fighter. If he doesn't, I don't want to see it. I just don't want to see the fight. I won't be excited about the fight. And that's why I think also we talked about earlier why fights over here is losing money. And the Sheik is saying, you know what, if I'm going to go over there and lose money, I might as well stay home where the money is. And people will come over here and watch big time fights. I think he's taking a page out of Dana White. Let's put the fights together that people want to see. People will pay for what they really want to see. They're not going to pay for fighters that just come out of nowhere. You slap a record on them and then you go in there and pummel them. So that's my little 2 cents on it. All right, this is our edition of the fight game, the Gap Band Brothers. These Icewater, see that Icewater in back of them and in front of them. This is Puma, and this is Fight Game.